Alright, here it goes.
So the issue of abortion and women's reproductive rights has been a subject of debate long since the decision of Roe v. Wade in 1973.
It's actually been debated before that.
But while the debate has been around for decades, the actual substance of the discussion doesn't seem to have changed that much. One side argues that women should be able to govern what happens to their bodies,
But it's better to prevent unwanted pregnancies before they happen.
while the other argues that abortion and other forms of contraception are murder. Recently, and quite notably, the Supreme Court even ruled that companies with religious owners, such as Hobby Lobby, shouldn't have to pay for certain forms of contraception as part of health insurance, since those owners' religious beliefs dictate that those contraception methods are, in fact, killing babies.
Hang on a second. Okay, now when I first saw this, I thought you were arguing in favor of abortion because you wanted it to be legal. But now you're going against something that will just allow companies to not fund contraceptives. What the heck? Okay, so instead of just legalizing abortion, you're going to force people to fund it. What the heck?
So to the Supreme Court, and to the owners of Hobby Lobby, and anyone else who subscribes to the argument that abortion is murder, allow me to introduce myself. My name is RJ Aguiar, and I'm here to...
Okay, hang on, guys. I have to introduce myself. Okay, my name's Random Boy 3M, and, I'm one of those YouTubers who, instead of getting to the point, he introduces himself, because, that's what every normal YouTuber does.
tell you why your argument is wrong.
I'll get offended, but unlike you, I won't get in my safe space.
First off, let's take a look at the word murder, which is defined as the unlawful and premeditated killing of one person by another person. So already we run into two issues.
No, we haven't.
First off, murder is unlawful, abortion is not.
And already you're saying BS. The government does not determine what is moral or immoral. And if it did, then there would be absolutely nothing wrong with totalitarianism. Older definitions of murder say the intentional, premeditated killing of another person with malice. With malice meaning evil.
Second is the assumption that a fetus or an embryo is legally a person. And when you make that assumption, things start to get really dicey. See, over here, you have a person, a living, breathing, fully functioning organism. And over here, you have a fertilized egg, which is the moment that many pro-lifers argue is the moment that life begins.
Remember when he used a dictionary definition to prove his point? Well, he just threw that out the window. Human being is defined as any individual of the genus Homo, especially a member of the species Homo sapiens. A person, especially as distinguished from other animals or as representing the human species. That does not exclude the unborn.
Now let's compare the two. A person has the ability to communicate and express themselves. A zygote does not.
Some people, even after they are born, actually have disabilities that prevent them from communicating. Oh yeah, and again with the definition I just gave earlier.
A person has the ability to think and reason and learn. A zygote does not.
Again, you're judging based on ability here.
A person has the ability to feel emotions, as well as perceive a variety of outside external stimuli. A fertilized egg cannot do those things.
Judging based upon ability, again.
But all of that aside, the simple fact is that you have a lot of developmental stepping stones in between here and here.
Development does not just stop when you're born. You probably didn't need to grow that stupid beard you have. You were just born with it because development just stops at birth.
First of all, you start with fertilization, or conception. But the fertilized egg doesn't even reach the uterus until about a week later.
If an egg did not reach the uterus, then it's not fertilized. Oh yeah, and before you reach the womb, which is where abortions take place, you have to go through the uterus first.
And all the characteristics that we use to identify the person over here show up at different points in this little timeline here.
Once again, development does not completely stop after you're born.
Heartbeat doesn't start till 6 weeks.
The baby's heart starts to beat at 18 days, which is basically a little over 2 weeks. And it pumps blood at 22 days, which is a little over 3 weeks.
The brain and spinal cord don't even begin to show up until week 13.
At 2 to 3 weeks, a baby's brain is the first organ to appear.
Lungs aren't able to start processing oxygen until week 24.
I don't know about the lungs though. But once again, even after you're born, you are not fully developed.
Brain function does not typically begin until week 26.
Brain waves are detected at 6 weeks. Here's a clip from the website for the Endowment of Human Development.
Primitive brainwaves have been recorded as early as 6 weeks and 2 days.
And coordination doesn't typically begin until week 33.
And here's a video on the same website.
A touch to the mouth area causes the embryo to reflexively withdraw its head.
But I'm not here to lecture about fetal development. I don't even claim to be an expert in fetal development. Let me just get to the point. When it comes to determining when life begins and when a fetus begins to have legal rights, it is an extremely complex and in-depth debate. Because again, so many of the criteria that I use to describe personhood shows up at different points in the timeline.
Yeah, as if you completely stop developing as soon as you're born.
But one thing is definitely certain. A zygote is not the same thing as a baby. So when you argue that abortion and contraception are baby murder, it makes for a compelling visual, but a bad argument. At least from a legal and intellectual standpoint. This is what you would call an appeal to emotion. Something that's more meant to tug at your heartstrings than to make an actual intellectual point.
Just because something is sad does not make it an appeal to emotion. Only if it focuses on emotion alone.
And here's the problem with appeals to emotion. They are very good at bypassing the parts of your brain that are rational and logical, all while distracting from the fact that the actual substance of the argument is flawed. For the record, this is why the Hobby Lobby ruling is so dangerous.
Dangerous. You think it's dangerous. Oh yeah, and what's so pro-choice about forcing Hobby Lobby to pay for contraceptives?
Because it doesn't just argue that a company owner's religious beliefs trump that of his employees,
So it's the other way around.
but that it also trumps the letter of the law. As I said before, Hobby Lobby and those other religiously owned businesses didn't want to cover contraception in their health plans because they believed that they were committing murder according to their religion, and the men of the Supreme Court agreed with them. But here's the problem. We already have a legal definition of murder, and we already have a legal definition of when pregnancy begins.
Because we should never repeal a single law ever again.
And while freedom of religion gives people the right to believe and practice as they choose, the law still takes precedence.
Yeah, unless it contradicts.
Or at least it normally does. Which is why, for instance, people can't take multiple spouses or perform ritual sacrifice, even if their religion says it's okay.
Not paying for contraceptives and ritual sacrifice. Great comparison.
So in short, the Hobby Lobby ruling says this now. Even though the law already dictates what constitutes murder and what constitutes abortion, the religion of these companies' owners still takes precedent over all of that.
If you deliberately kill a person and and it's not done in self-defense, according to the law, that is murder.
Which is, for lack of a better term, very bad. Now, this is not to say that being pro-life is wrong. It just means that those in the pro-life camp cannot continue to make the argument that abortion and or contraception is murder.
Oh, so there are better arguments. Well then why the heck aren't you pro-life?
If you want to argue that a fertilized egg or that a small mass of cells is a person, that is perfectly fine, but you are going to have to use science and logic and reason to make your point.
Which has been done before.
And not sentimentality or dogma, because those are not valid arguments.
You know, I don't even think you've heard any of us argue about this before.
Furthermore, not only must you prove that a fetus and or an embryo is a person, but that it is a special person with certain rights that supersede the legal rights of other people.
It must be special?
Because while a fetus may or may not be a full-fledged person, do you know who most certainly is? The mother.
Except believing the fetus is a person does not mean that you deny that the woman is a person.
She is most certainly a person, and people have the right to dictate what goes on with their own bodies, even when someone else's life is at stake.
What? Okay, hang on. Can you just repeat yourself there? Can you just look at what you said? Even if someone else's life is at stake? Have you never heard of your rights end where mine's begin?
Let's say that I have a brother that has a terminal illness, one that requires some kind of kidney or bone marrow or blood donation in order to save his life. Now let's say that I am a match, and that a donation from me would cure his disease permanently. I am not legally bound to give him that life-saving donation.
Except there are many other people that can make the same donation.
Even if it does little or no harm to me. There is no law that says that I have to save him if I don't want to. Even after I die, they cannot extract a sample or a donation from me unless I give my consent ahead of time.
Or unless you're a fetus.
And keep in mind that this theoretical brother of mine is most certainly a person. But still, his life does not take precedence over my bodily autonomy. So why should a woman have to forfeit that right the minute she gets pregnant?
I will link an article in the description that debunks this argument.
Why do her rights suddenly become secondary to those of a mass of cells that may or may not be a full-fledged person? So if this debate is going to go anywhere, then these are the kind of questions that we need to be discussing. And
a lot of people are discussing it.
stop it with all of the yelling and all of the sign holding, because that does not seem to be doing any good anymore. So if you have something of substance that you wish to add, I'm sure there's going to be people duking it out in the comments section below. And if I catch any of you posting in all caps, I will block you, I swear to God.
Nothing exists anymore because I put things exist in all caps.